Right, looks like I was actually wrong, and activities is what's up next. This is probably going to have to cover two or three separate videos. I hope to get it to be only in three, though, or only in two. So here we go. I'm going to be going in order of every individual activity rather than trying to get multiple to fit on a page, unless the layout literally does not allow for that. Starting off strong, especially if you are doing a campaign or project related to a mission, something, I hate to use the word woke, but if you're talking about activism, if you're talking about societal change, talk about why it matters to your company. Talk about their connection. All right. Pepsi is going to want to make sure that they are aligning with their corporate missions. Pepsi in the past has done the Save the Polar Bears campaign. I don't remember the actual name for it, but you know what it is. It's the polar bear on the jar. They're not going to do a campaign that actively supports destroying the ice caps in pursuit of the perfectly cold Pepsi drink. This section does support the overall theme. If you can tie it back into that company history, bring in specific campaigns, your judge is going to be approaching this as if they are a person within that company who's approving the campaign. Lean into that. Show how much research and how much time you have spent on this. Next, I moved into the website revamp because this was owned media, and honestly, I hate the graphic. That's the biggest issue I have with this. Additionally, part of the aspect of this campaign is that Dr. Martens, the boot company, they are based out of the UK, and they have two separate umbrellas. They have the corporate umbrella, they produce the merchandise, they sell everything, they're the ones that make the profit, and then they have a separate charity underneath them. It's the Dr. Martens Foundation, and that's talking about more of their social activism initiatives, which is fantastic. However, especially since I jumped right into it, I talked about both of those in this section. I feel like I should have more clearly delineated between them. If you are doing something like with your paper, if you're talking about a company that has two separate umbrellas, it's good to develop shorthand or to kind of remind your judge throughout the paper how that works. This does concisely go over a lot of key points, so it does end up pretty strong though. News coverage. This is one of those fantastic paid, earned, owned media combos that allows you to increase the credibility of your activities. News coverage, for this, generally speaking, you're going to want to talk about magazines, you're going to want to talk about trade mags, talk about broadcast versus radio, talk about your demographic. Try to get as much independent information in it as possible. However, some negatives here. There are some statistics that are kind of buried in here. Consider taking statistics out with a graphic to break up walls of text as well as to increase their impact. What I am not saying by that is bold them. A lot of students will just start bolding important things, but the problem is our brains are easily manipulated and they're kind of lazy. They see bolding and our gut reaction is to think, oh, that's the important piece. I don't need anything else. You're going to want to try to decrease skimming as much as possible. That is your enemy. And once you submit your paper judge, they have nothing stopping them from skimming. Additionally, roughly 2/3 of your paper's activities should have some sort of example art thing. You're gonna hear me griping about it throughout the course of this playlist that I don't have enough examples. Right here, a trade mag having, for example, the magazine spread like Time and Vogue, that would have been a fantastic example. And we're going to talk about figs in a minute as well, as to how you can use images and figs to break up walls of text. But overall, good detail and a good tie into the theme. Social media campaign. This was good basic information, but it was really bland. I think we could have really benefited from some banding use here, and I'm going to go over that actually in my props video, which will be after this playlist. But when you have information like this, try to get it as concise as possible and then use a visual to make it interesting. User-generated content. There will be a posted version of this that is just the paper all in its glory, so you can read through and actually see specifically what I'm referencing at. The use of diction in this, however, helps establish both a logos and a pathos and an ethos, so it hits all three of the main trifecta. The key to this is you want to start off with ethos, give them the emotional reasoning, and then you move into logos, move into that logic. Also, I think an example of user-generated content would have greatly impacted this piece. Okay, this is one of those things I was talking about where the layout just physically did not work with splitting it. So we're looking at TikTok. This is a really detailed paragraph. I'm really proud of it. There's good content, and it uses other brands to support reasoning who are similarly positioned. Dr. Martens is known for being young and hip and cool, so talking about how like Wendy's has their National Roast Day and how Duolingo is, well, we all know what Duolingo is doing. Putting those into contrast sort of brings credibility and validity to this campaign. The image is good. I hate the fact that everything blurs on here for Zoom. So let's talk about figs. A fig, short for figure, is basically a caption. We're going to use banding. We're not going to have it be on the same color as whatever that activity is. And if the TikTok paragraph here gives overall context, the fig is going to tell us how we're carrying out that thing. The fig here is going to try to incorporate like either a statistic or some sort of numerical value to bring the idea of logos to a text. And then additionally, it's going to give you information like we're focusing on the customer voice because that allows for paid and owned posts to feel genuine. And we're talking about bright, bold text, and colors are a must. They have to be fast and engaging. You're using detailed descriptive language here because figs otherwise are boring. This is one of those few times where I highly suggest using bolding so that it's easy to match up the number to the number. Looking at Spotify now, once again, detailed paragraph. The fig is more content specific, talking about the ads are this specific amount of time, so they have to be eye-catching. That plays into the idea of impressions are formed after 5 seconds. If you have a statistic that really well fits two separate activities, such as that impressions are formed after 5 seconds, it's better to incorporate that into the number 1 fig so that the second fig will be building upon that information. Additionally, if you were to read through this, there's a really strong tie into the theme, which makes the Spotify advertisements really feel like they fit. So we're looking at influencers here, which is this one, and this one, and this one. There's good reasoning, but this is a fantastic example of when there are too many numbers, too many specifics, this makes it incredibly inaccessible for my judge to read it at a fast pace. Additionally, the fig actually isn't adding much detail. There's a lot of filler in here, and overall, this reads as confusing, if not bland. What we could theoretically do is we could make statistics graphics out of these. We could do a separate, smaller graphic, doing something to bring it out, make it pop, make it easier so that when the judge references back, they're not falling into the bolding trap, but then they're also able to see at a glance, oh, hey, this thing was that, and this is the statistic that backs it up. And these are the numerical values as to why this will be good. Okay, Instagram, there's a solid fig here. I do appreciate the impressions forming after 15-second stat. The fig overall is good. The reasoning behind here is good. Once again, however, though, there's too many numbers. And these are really awesome statistics. If we pulled them out, if we made them bolder, if we made them brighter, that would be fantastic. Additionally, if you have statistics that fit multiple separate things, kind of talking about the figs, put them at the end of those activities. So the whole thing about brand searches increases by this amount, put it underneath Instagram, put it underneath influencers so that it fits to both of them. It provides a lasting impact for the judge to sit back and say, oh yeah, I get it. I get how that works. All right, YouTube. There are 2 separate figs in here, and I kind of screwed up. Generally speaking, if you're using only 1 fig per caption or per item or per activity, switching it up to having 2 can be confusing, especially if it shows up nowhere else in the paper. I did this because YouTube, we were using multiple different sub-activities within it. And the paragraph is good. The content is good, but I do feel like I could have pushed the button here, but could have pushed the envelope. All right, so no matter what paragraph you are doing, you should include search engine optimization in some form or another. It's not fun, it's not super glamorous, it's good quality, but it's dull. It puts in an honest day's work. For OR projects, these are fantastic because that way you can talk about the external impact of putting in a specific type of search engine optimization. If you're looking at the impact of AI, for example, you can use search engine optimization to make sure that people are able to use and find your project or your website as quickly as possible. You can even power it with AI. If you are looking at a community giving project, use search engine optimization as a super cheap way to make sure that you are advertising for your event. If you are doing anything else like that, this is just a great thing to include. Startup businesses, super cheap way to advertise. Anything for entrepreneurship. Search engine optimization offers so many benefits. I cannot wax enough poetics about it. And then this is going to be my last activity before I move on to the second video so I don't get cut off. You should have in every activity section for an IMC at least 3 activities that tie in to the heart of your campaign. Bonus points if they are punny and if they are sort of building on a haha, that's so cute thing. Because, for example, Dr. Martin's, it's the March On campaign. We have a couple different activities coming next that you'll see. We're talking about activism and stories of climate change, and we're talking about artists, and we're talking about history. Bringing in that mission thematics helps with the theme, originality, overall professionalism, and the overall presentation scores area. These hit those soft skill marks. In this case, the blog posts allow for us to tie in customer voice, which is something that was really important for this campaign. It also allows for a thematic tie-in. However, one of the things I would have done here, I should have done an example marketing piece, do an example blog, have something that really shows how we're integrating in visuals to both draw in our customers with visual stimuli, as well as to present our ideas and missions in a visually pleasing way. All right, so that is going to be part 1 for activities, and I'm about to post the next one next. So there we go.